President Buhari directs security agencies to ensure peaceful atmosphere for conduct of Anambra governorship polls.
The President has made it very, very clear that any action that is outlandish, any action that typifies roguery, the usurpation of the authority of the state is not going to be tolerated.
Nigerian Railway Corporation confirms attack on Kaduna-bound train by hoodlums.
And trial of leader of proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, adjourns to 10th of November.
We believe that justice will prevail in the end. So that's all that's happened today in court.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on polio interruption and emerging diseases in Nigeria.
All right, Nigeria and by extension the African region was certified wild polio virus free in 2020. Now that followed a rigorous verification and certification process undertaken by the African Regional Commission for the Certification of Poliomyelitis Eradication. Now that process spanned 3 years of no detection of the wild polio virus anywhere in the country. Until date, there's been no case of the wild polio virus isolated anywhere in the country, in human or in the environment.
That's right, Claire. And recall that about 25 years ago, polio was responsible for paralysis of thousands of children in Africa. And since 1988, the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, comprising an international partnership of government and private initiatives, commenced the efforts of eliminating polio from most parts of the world, which was later achieved after a decade of oral vaccination.
Indeed, just to add a little data there, Kieran, WHO also came out to say that there were some 73,000 cases of polio annually, in the whole of African region. And at the time, Nigeria was contributing one of the largest,
not just one of the
largest number. And of course, that was why the African region was still declared a polio endemic area. But sometime in July this year, the attention of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, that's the NPHCDA, was drawn to reports in some sections of the media claiming that there was an outbreak of a new polio variant in some states. Now, this agency had also had to make clarification and said it was a gross misrepresentation because according to the agency, no case of wild polio virus has been reported anywhere in the country since the last case in 2016.
Yes, and experts have also said that there's a likelihood of emerging diseases that perhaps could show the symptoms of polio. That may have necessitated people believing that, of course, there's another polio.
In fact, the explanation that was given was that it was the non-wild variant. Yes,
right.
Of it that was.
Okay.
But we don't know the cause.
The cause, exactly. Yes. That's why they are called the new emerging diseases in the world. Now, the truth, according to health experts, is that what was being misconstrued for an outbreak of polio virus was found to be an acute flaccid paralysis spread across 7 states of the country. These non-wild polio viruses originated as a result of normal changes in the reproduction of viruses. Claire, one dangerous thing about viruses is that they have the capacity to reproduce, mutate, and of course bring variants of such diseases. That's what is actually facing the world presently.
But we don't know why this one is not wild, why it is it's non-wild variant. But it's good for us because viruses are not as virulent as wild. I mean, that is the flaccid paralysis, yes, the one discovered. And not as virulent as wild polio virus. and of course are also being reported in other countries. Now, working with, donors and development partners, international organizations, Nigeria has already acquired new tools, so we are told, and resources to ensure that the viruses are contained.
The coronavirus pandemic, for instance, that took the world by storm, is the latest in the range of emerging diseases that have ravaged life and livelihood. Though the vaccine for the virus has been deployed across the world, the devastating effect of the disease is far from over, Claire.
Well, there are people who are taking action, Rotary members, of course, especially on World Polio Day, to raise awareness, funds, and support to end polio. Not here in Nigeria, but of course, polio is a vaccine-preventable disease, and it is still threatening children in other parts of the world. So how can we fight other emerging diseases in Nigeria, like we have done to polio? That's one of the several issues that we will be putting across to our guests. As usual, we have, assembled the best of the best that will speak on the issue of, how we can focus on polio interruption and or sustained polio interruption, I beg your pardon, and of course emerging diseases in Nigeria. So on this note, it's Friday, a very good day. I know everyone always people look forward to Friday. So let me welcome you to a very beautiful Friday morning Good Morning Nigeria, and we are live on the network service of the NTA. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. Kieran.
Yeah, and I am Kieran Umar. I also join Claire to welcome you to this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria. And as usual, we are live on the network service of the NTA, of course, reaching from the capital city of Abuja. Now, we'll also endeavor.
I haven't seen you in a while.
Well, of course, I've been around. All right, and we are going to endeavor to bring you some of the complementary segments in the course of the program today. For now, here is our colleague, Anne Jibono, with the morning news. Hello, Anne.
Yeah, good morning, Kieran and Claire. Good morning, Nigeria. Here's the morning news. The National Security Council has expressed absolute confidence in the ability of the nation's armed forces and other security services to fully restore normalcy in Nigeria's security situation before the tenure of the Buhari presidency elapses. The National Security Advisor, Babagana Mungunu, made this optimism clear after the council's meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari.
Excellent job, because in the span of 1 month we've been able to take out the leadership of the Islamic State West Africa province, Abu Musab al-Barnawi. 2 days ago, the man who succeeded him, one Malam Bako, who is also one of the prominent leaders of the Shura Council of the Islamic State West Africa province, was also taken out, which means basically Shekau is out, Abu al-Barnawi is out, now Malam Bako is out. They are also contending with leadership, and these things are also accompanied by a lot of inherent issues of trust, conflict, mutual suspicion, and other things.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the armed forces and other security services in the country not to leave anything to chance towards ensuring that the forthcoming Anambra governorship election is conducted on schedule and peacefully too. The president gave the directive at the resumed meeting of the National Security Council.
The president has made it very, very clear that any action that is outlandish, any action that typifies roguery, the usurpation of the authority of the state, is not going to be tolerated.
And we want to assure the people of Anambra State and indeed all Nigerians that the government is committed to conducting those elections, and it has to be free and fair. We are going to put every machinery in place to ensure that people are well secured, and we are going to dominate the place to ensure that this place is calm and quiet to provide for a free and fair elections.
Away from security matters, President Buhari has commended the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, for his hard work and commitment to the handling of state matters, which led to the success of the just concluded midterm ministerial performance review retreat. The President, in a letter he personally signed, attributed the success of the retreat to the diligence of the SJF as well as the entire staff of the Cabinet Affairs Office, saying the ministerial retreat was something to be proud of. The retreat was organized to review the level of implementation of the ministerial mandates along the 9 priority areas, identify key impediments to implementation, and re-strategize on how to accelerate delivery of results. The National Assembly Conference Committee on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021 has commenced harmonization of the 2 versions of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill passed by both chambers of the National Assembly.
The issue of technology has dominated recent public discussions in Nigeria. The Commission appreciates the decision of the National Assembly to empower INEC to determine and deploy appropriate technology in future elections.
So much can happen with collaboration and from listening to citizens, and this committee and this joint committee as well has done so much to do so.
The electronic transmission of results will improve oversight of the results collation process.
The Future Assured initiative of Nigeria's First Lady, Aisha Buhari, has made significant impact towards supporting women, youths and children in the country through the various intervention programs. 6 years down the line, the First Lady of Nigeria, who is the founder of the program, and other well-meaning individuals within and outside the country have converged on Abuja to celebrate the success story of the foundation and to look inwards towards striving hard to do more for the benefit of women and children.
The review of future assured activities is to provide more insight to the major achievements made over the years. My appeal, therefore, to partners and other stakeholders not to relent on efforts and support. Your commitment and support to future assured remains important in deepening our collective commitment and investment to the development of this country.
This is as it should be. The very future of Nigeria and the very future of our communities depends on how well we address the many concerns of women and children in our communities, especially the 3 focal areas that Future Assured has identified: health, education, and empowerment, and economic empowerment. And we agree with Future Assured's belief that all social indices can be influenced if the health, education, and economic status of the population are improved upon.
The leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has been rearraigned before Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court, sitting in Abuja.
As you see, he was in court today, and we believe that justice will prevail in the end. So that's all that has happened today in court.
And security personnel as well as railway experts have been mobilized to the site of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack by unidentified persons.
Then I heard that we could not travel after we have booked. Myself and my family, we have booked the train for Idu in Abuja. We have to tighten security to ensure that people going on board are scrutinized before they get in.
The EOD of the police and the policemen of Idu Railway Police Division has gone to do to have a first-hand information of what has happened. And our men from the engineering departments are mobilized to go and rectify whatever problem that has occurred.
That's the news for now. The program continues with Kieran and Claire just after this break. Thanks.
Since coming into office in 2015, the Buhari administration has recorded unprecedented achievements in all sectors, especially in the provision of infrastructure, which is the key to economic growth. Never in the history of this country has any other administration done so much with so little. I recall that when this administration came into office, the price of crude oil, which provides for 80% of Nigeria's budgetary revenues and 95% of foreign exchange earning, dropped drastically, thus reducing the amount of resources available to the federal government. In spite of this, the administration has continued apace with massive infrastructure developments.
This message is from the Federal Minister of Information and Culture.
It's scary, isn't it? Putting yourself out there, ignoring the voices telling you you can't. Will you step aside, or will you go for it? After all, what's the worst that could happen? So, keep trying. Don't.
The broadcast media ecosystem is dynamic and requires continuous training for practitioners to perform optimally. NTA TV College JOS invites relevant officers to the following specially packaged training programs. Archival Management System in the Broadcast Media, date 11th October to 29th October 2021, 3 weeks. Intermediate Presentation Techniques, date 11th October to 22nd October 2021, 2 weeks. Digital Satellite, Microwave, and RF Technologies, date 11th October to 15th October 2021, 1 week. Advanced Broadcast Accounting and Auditing, date 25th October to 5th November 2021, 2 weeks. Photojournalism and Photography, date 8th November to 26th November 2021, 3 weeks. Transmitter Operation and Maintenance, date 1st November to 5th November 2021, 1 week. The course fee for the 3-week course is 130,000 naira per participant, while the fee for the 2-week course and the 1-week engineering courses is 100,000 naira only per participant, accommodation inclusive. The venue for all courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA TV College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For more information, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College Jos, training you to be the best you want to be.
Two entertaining sides will be looking to get the results when they meet at Ellen Road. Who will come out on top? This Saturday, it's Leeds United versus Wolverhampton Wanderers on the Premier League Live, showing on the network service of the NTA, Silverbird Television and Sporties.com from 2:30 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Baba Ijebu and powered by Integral.
Let's talk a bit of business now. And the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development is advocating more investment in the agricultural sector to further push the diversification policy of the federal government. This is part of what Alika Okpanache Arwa will be telling us in her business news package.
Minister of State for Agriculture and Rural Development, Mustafa Baba Shehuri, is soliciting more financial support to upscale the massive investment in the agricultural sector. He said agriculture, being the focus of government diversification agenda, deserves a better agro-financing to provide credit facilities to support the sector's value chain activities. The minister, who emphasized that Nigeria remains a global player in agricultural export, said in 2019, Nigeria exported sesame seeds oil worth 77.04 billion naira, cocoa 66.73 billion naira, cashew nuts 45.6 billion naira, frozen shrimps and prawns 7.46 billion naira, and ginger 3.34 billion naira.
Also propose solutions to challenges of Nigeria's agricultural commodities, rejection by European Union. The discussion should revolve around possible ways to improve global acceptance of the agricultural commodities for export without fear of rejection by international communities. This is important for our export drive and economic diversification.
With business news, Alika Okpanache Arwa.
Many thanks to you, Alika, for that business package. And next on the program is a review of today's national dailies.
It's Friday. Ambayo Atoyebe is here. Good morning. Thank God it's Friday. Good morning. How do you do?
Welcome to the program. Yes, Claire, let's begin with the leadership newspaper. Leadership newspaper, from top to bottom. Well, let's take the lead story. Attacks on train. Trucks ground Abuja Kaduna rail operation. Attacks on train. Trucks ground Abuja Kaduna rail operations. That's on page 4. It has 4 riders to that story. Passengers stranded. ISWAP Boko Haram fingered. 2 months after military kills al-Banawi's successor. Negligence mars Warri Itabe train operations. We are working on the challenge, according to the Nigerian Railway Corporation. And just below that, at editors' conference, Kyari blames elite for crude oil theft. With a rider, Isi Ekwene, others seek professional framework for the media. All right, now below the photo story, women benefited more from federal government's 38 billion naira loan. That's according to the Vice President, Shimbajo. That's on page 6. SARS victims drag federal government to ECOWAS court. The story is captured on page 6. 72 lawmakers elevated to rank of senior advocate of Nigeria. That's on page 8. I won't rest until Nigeria becomes better, according to, let's say, the owner of the DAG Communications. The story is also on page 6 of the leadership newspaper. Claire.
All right, and we have on the front page of The Nation a very disturbing development indeed. Explosion on Abuja Kaduna rail track disrupts operations. Explosion on Abuja Kaduna rail track disrupts operations. Hundreds of passengers stranded. We are working to resume services, says NRC boss. And this happened yesterday. If you take a look at below the newspaper, you will see the wreckage. You see the train after the explosion, and of course the rail track, the damaged section of the rail track. It's right there, of course, on your screen. If the paper there, and it actually happened on Wednesday evening, not yesterday, according to this paper. So if we just have a look at the camera can catch that for us. Oh, there it is. You see the train. That's the last. It said it's the last train, AK-10, on the Abuja Kaduna standard gauge rail line on Wednesday, and it was attacked. We don't know. They said there was an explosion which affected the track and, of course, the locomotive. Kanu pleads not guilty to treasonable felony charge. That story is just above the lead story. IPOB leader remains in DSS custody. Trial resumes November 10. Kanu pleads not guilty to treasonable felony charge. IPOB leader remains in DSS custody. Trial resumes November 10. And Anambra 2021. INEC delivers non-sensitive materials. Well, APC will win, says caretaker secretary. Obiano promises amnesty for prisoners. And another story still coming out from Anambra, above the nameplate. Nothing must stop Anambra poll, Buhari tells service chiefs. Details of that, it's on page 5. And NHRC, Human Rights Commission boss, 10 dons among 72 new senior advocate of Nigeria, SANs. The inauguration will be in December 8th, sometime in December. That's according to The Nation. Live jail awaits drug law breaker, says Marwa. It's on page 6. Gunmen abduct NYSC member, others in Zamfara. Details of that on page 23. Bayo, take your pick.
Yeah, let me start with the story that have dominated the papers. The Nigerian Railway Corporation has suspended services along Abuja-Kaduna route. The corporation took the decision due to damage to rail track as a result of suspected vandalism. The managing director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, Mr. Fidet Ohiria, blamed vandals for the act. However, Daily Trust reports that commuters were trapped for over 6 hours on Wednesday night. The train that last left Abuja for Kaduna was eventually dragged back to Rigasa at about 2 a.m. This was because someone claimed that about 2 substations to Rigasa, there was a bang. The train gradually glided to a halt. Lights went out. The air conditioner ceased working. Passengers were locked in. There was no network. This is about 40 kilometers to Kaduna. The paper claimed that credible security sources say that the obstruction was led by, as a result of terrorists reported to have blown a section of the track by dynamite. The assailants were said to have returned early Thursday and inflicted further serious damage on the rail track, forcing the Nigerian Railway Corporation to suspend services. Speculations are very rife on the social media, featuring photographs of damaged parts of the train services. Nevertheless, the managing director of the Nigerian Railway Corporation says that, well, we even operated a train services from Kaduna to Abuja Thursday morning, but we had to suspend operations until we fixed the damaged track. It may be recalled that in July, the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, said that the Railway Corporation has lost as many as 15,000 clips along the Kaduna-Abuja rail track in the period of 5 years to vandals. The minister lamented that a foreigner who was arrested and tried in court was fined a paltry sum of 200,000. Decrying that light punishment, the Honorable Minister of Transportation opined that manslaughter and, in fact, death penalty ought to be meted on such. Again, sometime in May, the rail track between Itakpe and Warri rail line were also had portions of it cut. It was providence that led the engineers to discover it. Otherwise, the train could have derailed. And the minister is saying that where rail track have been vandalized, the likelihood is that a passenger train, if it derails, is an instance of mass murder. And so something has to be done very drastically about this.
I think we have discussed that on this program some time ago when we had Okira himself,
joining.
Joining. And he made it so clear, that the law did not make provision for what should happen to vandals, especially on rail track. And he was seeking for a law, that would be enacted to actually take care of that. Because like you said, the purchase sum of 200,000 naira for a foreigner who is involved, who was caught red-handed. So something has to be done, because the issue of vandalizing rail tracks, like as you rightly pointed out, I mean, is a clear murder case, so to speak, because we're operating passenger planes this time around. We're not even got into cargo.
A vandal is a criminal. Yes. If you vandalize government properties to this magnitude, you're a criminal, and the law that applies to criminals should be activated. It's as simple as that. We cannot go. It's so disheartening to know that even vandals, now go around using explosives and target explosives not just at the tracks but also, at the locomotives. This is another dimension to vandalism.
Well, all these are in the ambit of speculation, but apparently something serious has happened, and that is why the train services.
Well, we have to take the report of the management. I mean, we shouldn't.
Also, in Birnin Kebbi, 30 among the students of the Federal Government College who were abducted were released yesterday. A statement by the special advisor to the governor of Kebbi State says that 30 of them have been brought to Birnin Kebbi. He says that efforts are continuing to secure the release of the remaining students and staff. Parents also say that they are waiting to have them. They will be taken to hospitals and they will have a medical checkup before they are handed over to parents. It may be recalled that on 17th June, vandals, criminals invaded the school and took away SS1, SS2 students who were caught up in an examination hall. They were writing their terminal examination. Punch indicated that 13 of them were earlier on released with 2 teachers. This latest involved 30 students that were released. Negotiations have been on for a long time, but the criminals holding them are not demanding ransom. They say they want their colleagues who have been arrested to be rescued. So we still hope to have the rest among the 90 that were abducted released. Meanwhile, the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mongunu, says that Malam Baku, successor to Abu Musar, have been neutralized. It may be recalled that the Chief of Defense Staff, General Irabo, also on 14th of October confirmed that Abu Musab, the leader of the ISWAP, had also been confirmed dead. The National Security Advisor spoke at a presidential briefing after a security meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. The president was very categorical. The commander-in-chief gave order. He said, under no circumstances should anything be allowed to stop Anambra election from taking place successfully. President said, even if it means overwhelming the entire environment with security, everything must be done by the armed forces and all law enforcement agencies. They must make sure that the election take place in Anambra State. The president says the people have a right to vote and select their leaders. Meanwhile, at the Federal High Court in Abuja, the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, his trial commenced yesterday. The federal authority filed 7 fresh charges against him. He pleaded not guilty and also contended that the court lacks jurisdiction to try him. His request to be transferred to the Kuje Correctional Center was turned down. The presiding judge said he should name 3 persons who will be granted permission to visit him at the DSS custody, where he is to continue to remain. Another challenge we are facing is drug courier. The NDLEA says that Murtala Mohammed International Airport has become the hub of drug trafficking in Nigeria. And the NDLEA chair, Abu Marwa, told the presidential media team that between as much as in the last 15 years, 26.84 kilograms of cocaine were seized there at the airport. They were coming from Brazil. In another 24 kilograms of heroin was also seized there in April. 27 kilograms of cocaine was seized in May, and another heroin, 26.1 kilograms, also seized in May. In all, within the period of 10 months, the NDLEA has seized as much as 2.7 million kilograms of illicit drug worth 100 billion.
And it's amazing how they keep coming.
And this has been amazing. In fact, it is a good thing, that
those are the ones that are caught in the net.
Yes.
You never can tell how many of them have slipped through the net.
This has been going on over the years. It just requires the eagle eye of the security operatives, working with the NDLEA to find out. This has been going on for a very long time. But it's so gladdening, that at this point in time, they have perhaps re-strategized, and they're making it easy to, get those, copies.
As many as 159,355 traffickers have been arrested, among them 6 barons. The chairman of the NDLEA is actually asking for
the
life jail.
Yes.
Because the barons are the target. They own the network.
Either life sentence or capital.
Bayo, I have given you 5 minutes extra. I'm very generous.
Thank you for a generous Friday.
Yes. Have a good weekend, Bayo. All right. This is Good Morning Nigeria. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Federal government, through NPHCDA, commenced Phase 2 vaccination of all persons 18 years and above with safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines approved by WHO and certified by NAFDAC. Special arrangement has been made for staff, their dependents and retirees of ministries, departments and agencies of government, private corporate organizations and non-governmental organizations. To benefit from this special arrangement, visit www.nphcda.gov.ng/corporate vaccination/ to obtain, fill and submit the Google form. NPHCDA will contact you within 48 hours. Protect yourself, your family and your workplace against COVID-19. COVID-19 vaccines are free, safe and effective. For further inquiries, call 0700-220-1122 or send a mail to covid19.vaccination@nphcda.gov.ng. This message is from the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency.
A new edition of TV Guide is out exclusively with Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State.
Since assuming office, our rescue administration has pursued the path of peace and reconciliation and restored confidence among people of different ethnic, religious, and political persuasions. Peace is back on the plateau. We are building world-class infrastructure in roads and opening up opportunities for innovation.
The edition is a compendium of mind-blowing stories for your reading pleasure, ranging from entertainment, economy, sports, media, politics, family, and lots more. Pick up a copy and keep abreast with issues and trending features within our space. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, as a prompt for our conversation segment, which is on polio, interruption, and emerging diseases in Nigeria, let's take this background report as put together by correspondent Ekene Ndulwe.
Polio, an infectious disease caused by the polio virus, usually affects children under 5, sometimes leading to irreversible paralysis, and can also lead to death when breathing muscles are affected. About 25 years ago, this disease was responsible for paralysis of thousands of children in Africa. Since 1988, the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, an international partnership of government and private initiatives, commenced the efforts of eliminating polio from much of the globe. After decades of oral polio vaccination, Nigeria in 2020 became the last African country to be declared free from wild polio, having accounted for more than half of all global cases less than a decade ago. The story of polio eradication in Nigeria was hugely successful thanks to the contributions of Rotary International and other development partners. The milestone recorded in the elimination of polio virus in Nigeria leaves one to wonder if such feats can be achieved in eliminating other endemic and emerging diseases. Diseases like hepatitis B and C, typhoid fever, malaria, and cholera have over the years continued to be a major source of public health concern. The coronavirus pandemic that took the world by storm is the latest in the range of emerging diseases that have ravaged lives and livelihood. Though the vaccine for the virus has been deployed across the world, the devastating effects of the disease is far from over. How can Nigeria deploy the story of polio eradication to fight other emerging diseases? This is the focus on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
All right, that background report was put together for us by our correspondent Ekene Ndulwe. Many thanks to you. So let's quickly introduce our guest for this morning. And we have right here in the studio Dr. Tunji Funshaw, and he's chairman, National Polio Plus Committee of Rotary International. It's good to have you with us, Chairman.
Thank you for having me.
All right, sir. Also here with us in the studio is Ayola Oyedokun, and he's the district governor for District 9125 of Rotary International. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
And also the only lady here joining me in this discussion, or joining us for this discussion, is Dr. Doris John, the FCT State Epidemiologist. Dr. John, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and via Zoom, we have two guests who are going to be with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. First, we have Dr. Salma Ibrahim Anas. Dr. Anas is the Director and Head Family Health Department at the Federal Ministry of Health. He's joining us via Zoom in the U.S. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to have you here this morning.
All right. Well, he's actually here with us in Nigeria. Sorry about that. Now, also on Zoom from Lagos is Dr. Basi Okposen. He's the Director of Disease Control and Immunization, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. He's glad to have you this morning, sir. You're welcome to the program.
Good morning. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, let's start with you, Dr. Bass. It's good to see you, and you're not with us here in the studio, but let's start with you. What is this we hear about? Let me just get it right. Vaccine-derived polio virus type 2. And the speculations and misconceptions about it. Would you like to explain what it is to us? Because we hear that about 14 states already have experienced the outbreaks. And how much of a threat is it to public health?
Okay. Thank you, Claire, and the opportunity to share once again with Nigerians. The eradication status of having interrupted wild polio virus in Nigeria for now is still intact. We have the wild polio virus type 1, 2, and 3. As far as our country is concerned, on the 25th of August, we had interrupted the virus in Nigeria, in Africa at large, as also mentioned during the introduction. That status is still very intact. However, there are once in a while, especially in environment among children that are under-vaccinated, where we could have what we call the circulating polio virus being detected in their stool and in the environment. It is very different from the wild polio virus, because if you look at it globally, it's not only Nigeria. Currently in the world, there are about 25 countries that have recorded in total about 959 cases. This circulating wild polio virus is a rare occurrence. It doesn't occur commonly. And usually once it happens and is detected in the country, you give 2 good rounds of the campaign in such environment. It's usually good enough to interrupt. It is when it is neglected, then those virus over time can undergo mutation and change the mutation, genetic constraint, and so on, to become some other types of virus that are different from the original form that it was. And of course, like you said, yes, those environmental circulating polio virus we found, these are not the wild polio virus that were being eradicated. And the country had adequately responded to this. In fact, in some of those locations, we've had of the 3 rounds of the outbreak response so that we don't see it go beyond that. Because usually it's when it's seen and it's left to have circulated for over a period of 12 to 18 months without no intervention that those mutations can take place. But the country, we thank the President, the Honorable Minister of Health, the Executive Director of NPHC, and all our partners who nearly those circulating type we're seeing have responded, and the responses are also still ongoing in some of those new states that these were picked. So it's not currently a threat to the eradication because our eradication status is still intact. Thank you, over.
All right, thank you indeed. And let's return to the studio. We have Dr. Doris John, who is an epidemiologist. Let's get your own perspective to this explanation, madam, with respect to this new emergence. Yes, it's non-wild polio. And as we have gotten an explanation from Dr. Bassi that it poses no danger in the public health sector. But what do you make of this variant of polio? Yes, not necessarily wild, but of course, because of mutations of viruses, we wouldn't know whether that could also, transform into something very serious.
Thank you very much. Like Dr. Bassi said, this is not the wild polio virus. It usually emerges when the population is under immunized, like he said. So the children who are immunized secrete this in the vaccine. From the vaccine, these are parts of the viruses that are in the vaccines, and children who are not immunized can pick these viruses from the environment, and they can present with paralysis, because they have not been vaccinated. So it is when it is not responded to over time that it becomes an issue. So whenever you have issues with circulating vaccine-derived polio virus, you need to respond just like you are responding to outbreak of wild polio virus. You address it with such seriousness as you would the cases of wild polio virus. So if that is done and the immunization is immunization coverage is good, we will be able to tackle the issues of circulating vaccine-derived polio viruses.
You know, I'd just like for you to, just before we bring in our three other guests, to give us an insight into, you know, the drivers. You just talked about under, you know, areas that are under immunized. But we're also told that if we're not careful, you know, if we're not careful with handling, you know, the outbreak, it might impact negatively on our free status. So what, apart from immunization, what are the other drivers, you know, of this new variant? And what's the relationship with polio itself, with the white polio virus?
Now, the Polio Eradication Initiative has other strategies apart from strong routine immunization, like I have said. We also have effective surveillance. We have to look out for cases of acute flaccid paralysis, which could be due to polio or other causes. So it is in identifying these cases of acute flaccid paralysis that you would be able to rule out polio and find the other causes of the acute flaccid paralysis. So apart from strong routine immunization, we have the effective surveillance. We also have mop-ups, and we have the supplemental immunization activities that are outside the routine immunization, where our teams go house to house. These are all strategies in place that the drivers that would help us completely eradicate this and maintain our status. But as it is right now, our status is still intact, like Dr. Bassi said. And also, one thing we should know is that these circulating vaccine-derived polio viruses would continue to be there as long as our immunization coverage is poor. So what we need to do in order to tackle this is ensure that all these 4 strategies that I have enumerated are effective. At the front burner should be the routine immunization.
When we are talking about immunization, you mean the oral polio immunization? Is that what you're talking, or immunization generally?
Yes, the oral polio immunization, and now we have the inactivated polio vaccine, that is the injectable, that is also given during the routine immunization to the children at 14 weeks.
You know, if you look at the, sorry, Kirian, if you look at the list of states where outbreak, the new variants, you know, have been reported, these are states that are not traditionally endemic areas. For instance, I have on record Lagos, you have Rivers, you have Delta, you have some of those states that we would, I mean, it would appear that immunization here, you know, top notch, but this is not what we're seeing. Is there anything new about the immunization exercise or the process, or why we have our children under immunized?
Well, I would say when we talk about the circulating vaccine-derived polio, I would rather not call it a new variant, because it has always been there. It's just that the cases are becoming more. So it's an indication that the immunization coverage is poor. Now, for certain, I want people to know that the fact that we have interrupted the transmission of polio in Nigeria and in Africa does not mean we should let down our guards with our immunization. Sometimes you have teams going to houses and caregivers are saying, why are you still doing this when we have been declared polio free? Why do you need to do? And then, so we need, one thing we need to the public to understand is that One, despite the interruption, surveillance, the surveillance for polio is not going to stop. Immunization is not supposed to stop if we must maintain the status. So people need to come and accept this vaccine, even though we have been declared to have interrupted the transmission of this virus in Nigeria.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Dr. Osama Ibrahim. So we would like to also get your view, concerning this. Yes, Nigeria is enjoying a free status when it comes to immunization, but we're now beginning to see a new trend, which appears to be a little bit worrisome. Because from what Dr. Doris has explained, yes, we are free from immunization, but of course we will not, relax and appear as if we are, everything is uhuru. Now, what is the key, to keeping this new variant at bay, because it becomes devastating? Claire has mentioned that even states that are known to be fully immunized in this country are beginning to have records of these variants. Are we seeing an emergence of something that could become so worrisome that it will become another fight altogether? Yes, we have won the war of polio, but according to Professor Tomori, the war is still on.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have reached that level in terms of success, in terms of progress towards interruption of the polio virus. But we can't rest. We still have to sustain the efforts. The efforts not only in immunization and ensuring that each and every child in Nigeria is vaccinated against polio, but not only polio, against all other preventable childhood diseases. But we also want to step up action towards achieving a multi-sectoral approach and commitment, not only at the national level, but also at the sub-national level. What I mean by multi-sectoral approach, it does not only take the health sector to address the issue of polio in Nigeria, but it's a holistic approach of all sectors. Going back to the drawing board, we look at it, what causes even polio? It's all about environmental sanitation. So WASH program have to be there. A proper disposal of feces have to be there. Access to water supply, we have to have good access to potable water supply. So what am I saying here? All sectors hands must be on deck. The Ministry of Water Resources and Environment have a very critical role to play. When you look at it, how we dispose things, children have access to very unhealthy environment, filthy environment, where they can foods are contaminated and they ingest contaminated foods. So we have to work and step up action to ensure that all these are made available. And one singular thing that I want to emphasize, polio, or either we call it a circulating vaccine-driven polio, it's all about weak health systems. So our health system have to be very proactive, in not just in vaccination, not just in treatment of ailments, but most importantly, in health promotion and prevention of diseases. We have to have a system that have a capacity also to detect early, early signs and symptoms of polio. So this all have to put together to ensure that we have a strengthened system. And then going back to it again, we cannot rest. Being certified as a polio-free country, I mean, what I always say, the work starts, because we have to sustain all those efforts and even do better than what we have been doing before in terms of our political commitment at the national level, at the sub-national level, state levels, and also at the local government level. All players that have been involved in the fight against polio in the past, we must continue to work with them beyond the health sector, which includes the traditional institutions, the religious leaders, the civil society organizations. And this cannot only be delivered as a standalone. It has to be an integral part of our delivery of family health, that is reproductive, maternal, newborn, child health, adolescent, including the health of the elderly people. So as long as we continue to deliver focus only on polio alone, we will not have a sustained record of success in whatever, and then we continue to derail in our achievements. I remember that there are other emerging problems that are also coming up that also affect the children under 5 years. For instance, now, COVID. We are in an era of COVID. We are caught up with COVID since last year in Nigeria. It has not spared anyone, though we are seeing more cases among the elderly people and adults with underlying conditions. But the new trend also, we are beginning to see also children that are inflicted with COVID, in addition to several other numerous diseases that are emerging and those that are also re-emerging. And we are still battling with what we call epidemic that occurs almost on a yearly basis. We are still witnessing a high increase in cholera outbreaks in the country. So all this, if you look at it, especially the cholera outbreak and others, they all have to do with our environments, with our water supply, with the food that we eat, with how we dispose our waste and refuse. And that is why I still go back to say that it requires a holistic and multi-sectoral approach to address the issue of polio and all other childhood preventable diseases in the country.
Sorry, Claire. Now, Madam, when you say multi-sectoral approach, yes, that is given, because of course, when all hands are on deck, we are going to achieve results. But are you, thinking towards having a more concerted effort in terms of having, if you like, a task force, so to speak, because of course the efforts made to eradicate polio in Nigeria was concerted in the sense that both NGOs like Rotary International and other international organizations also, played a role in ensuring that we achieve that status. In this connection, are you suggesting that we should have a deliberate body created to ensure that these efforts we're talking about can be achieved in the health sector? Because of course, if you allow these new variants we're talking about to continue, as you rightly pointed out, as professionals, then we may find ourselves in a very difficult situation taking care of that. We may return to white polio, God forbid.
Yes, so what I'm saying in terms of multi-sectoral approach, beyond what we have even demonstrated for polio, in terms of other sectors of development, for instance, Ministry of Women Affairs, Ministry of Information, they have a very, very important role to play in dissemination of information and also behavior change of women and also families, to adopt a better lifestyle. And also Ministry of Environment, because it has to do also with environmental sanitation, access to clean water. So you cannot do that without also involving actively the Ministry of Water Resources to ensure that populace have access to potable and clean water to drink. And then when you talk of the environment, it's all about contamination. Contamination of food, contamination of water source. That is the key drivers of polio transmission in our communities and all other childhood preventable diseases. So in this sense of multi-sectoral approach, we've started something at the level of the Federal Ministry of Health, led by the Honorable Minister. We have had a technical team that involves all the key sectors involved. And we have already developed a framework which we hope to ensure that it is adopted and also made operational at the sub-national level. So it does not, that is what I meant when I talk about the multi-sectoral approach. It has worked, the holistic approach we have had for the polio eradication, having had all institutions and different disciplines involved in the campaign against polio. But what we are saying, moving forward, we must have all other sectors of development, including the Ministry of Education. Children have to be educated as an integral part of their school curriculum about personal hygiene, about food hygiene, about defecation. So access even to toileting facilities in schools is mandatory. It is mandatory. And then when we begin to raise kids with this kind of behavioral change and adoption of good attitudes and behavior, it makes a very big, at the end of the day, overall impact on not only interruption or sustaining interruption of polio, but also all other kinds of diseases, including diseases that are emerging and also re-emerging diseases.
All right, Dr. Anas, thank you very much for your contribution. Let's put you on hold and come back to the studio. We have two gentlemen from Rotary International We have the chairman of the National Polio Plus Committee and also the District 9125 governor. And Rotary, of course, is a partner in the eradication of polio, wild polio virus in Nigeria. So, Dr. Funsho, you heard just before we cascade the discussion to other emerging diseases. Let's just quickly round up on this issue of the vaccine, derived polio. Dr. John talked about lowering of the gap in terms of sensitization, in terms of immunization and all that. And, Dr. Annas also talked about the need for more concerted collaboration by partners. Is Rotary, letting down its guard in terms of surveillance, monitoring, and giving the push?
Thank you very much. Good morning. I think the issue of circulating vaccine-derived, virus actually predates certification. A point for us to remember is that vaccine-derived, polio comes from a vaccine virus that has over time. For most viruses, the more they get transmitted in an environment, the higher the chances of mutation. The vaccine virus is a very weak virus. Until recently, it has not caused paralysis in children. But what we have witnessed are two very important events. One is that in 2016, we stopped using the type 2 polio vaccine.
Oh, okay.
That means we have a cohort of children who have never been exposed to type 2. The second thing is, after that long period of time, we started using the monovalent vaccine, which now contains type 2, earlier on this year. Now, that has introduced into the environment these vaccines that children, since 2016, have not been exposed to before. And this virus has been circulating in an unhygienic environment, as Dr. Selma, has pointed out, an environment with poor water supply. As a result, it has many trips to the gut of unimmunized children. And that is what gives the opportunity. See, every living creature, plant or animal, mutates in one way or the other to survive. That is why most species are still alive today. And we have seen the same thing with the COVID-19, for instance. There have been hundreds of mutations. We just have this Delta variant that is much more virulent. So viruses will do that if you allow them. And what we need to understand is, you mentioned the disparity recently in CVPD cases in the South. You see, our immunization coverage in this country is very, how shall I say, erratic. You have some parts of the country that have very low coverage. The last survey, I think we had states that had less than 10%.
But Lagos, that's why I'm worried. Lagos, Rivers, and states like Delta.
Yeah, that's where I'm going. You see, that's where I'm going. They may, look. Lagos, for instance, has coverage of about 90%. Now, that is Lagos State. Now, you're not talking about what is the coverage in Ajegunle, or what is the coverage in Mushi, as distinct from Lekki and Ikoyi and Surulere. So, for instance, the figures given for Nigeria for routine immunization coverage is about 50%. But if we disaggregate that, we have states with 10% in the north, and we have states like Lagos with 90%. But even within Lagos State, you have areas that have 40% coverage and areas that have 95% coverage. But if you aggregate them and average them, you get these kind of numbers. And the two major incidences I mentioned apply to every part of this country. A cohort of children that have not been exposed to the type 2 virus, and then this cessation. of using the type 2 since
Dr.
2016.
Bassi says there's no cause for alarm, but the way you're painting it gives me some concern.
There's no cause for alarm, because we have the tools. We have the wherewithal, except perhaps money. Because since this outbreak started last year, at least 3 countries that have had outbreaks of vaccine derived have, capped it. They don't see it anymore. And like Dr. Bassi says, if you have two good quality outbreak responses, when we use, the new vaccine, which is another thing I should mention about, after you do 2 good rounds, you can almost be certain. Our challenge now is we're not getting enough funding and adequate attention at the state level in some states to ensure that these outbreak responses are carried out, in a quality manner. You can't do, anything without money. Yoruba people say, "Obetodun." This, soup that is sweet, costs money. And this is, I'm glad you've given us this forum to appeal to our governments at the local government level and at the state level, to step up to the table to ensure that the necessary funding, some states are doing pretty well. But you see, once one state lags behind, everybody is pulled, into the pool. Everybody's in danger.
Yes.
Okay, I think no cause for alarm. And the important thing you have gathered from what you said is that there should be adequate responses, to ensure that the so-called virus that may not be as dangerous as we think does not mutate into something dangerous. Because from all indications, if the viruses have to survive by mutation, if what we're talking about is vaccine derived, it means that it is, how do I put it? It's born out of treatment already given to others in terms of people who are vaccinated for polio will now generate another form of polio attack, which may not be as dangerous as the original one. I want to understand it from the layman's point of view.
Is that what it is?
I think we must not trivialize the fact that the vaccine-derived virus paralyzes people's children. This is why it is an urgent task that we must put a cap to it.
All right,
There's no doubt about that. Let me just mention an important thing that will also help us feel a little bit more at ease. The current vaccine that we are using for the outbreak response is a vaccine that has been re-engineered to make it more stable. So the chances of it mutating in the short term is very, very slim.
Okay.
And disrupting our status is very slim.
Yes.
No, not really. Our status, is a permanent status. I mean, we have had countries that have had reinfection after 30 years. Their status remained the same. And what they do is what we're doing with this vaccine derived. Very good, rapid outbreak responses, and they've put a cap to it.
Okay, Kiran, yes. I think we'll bring in...
Rotary International has distinguished itself, globally, not just in Nigeria, as a very key non-governmental organization when it comes to polio eradication. We've listened to professionals here and also your colleague in the Rotary world that we are having vaccination-derived polio. Do you have, as a Rotary governor of your district, do you have any intention of a special form of a strategy that you have, to continue offering the services Rotary has been offering this time around with respect to this new variant that we are discussing? Is there any special package that you have to address this in the normal course of your being conscious of polio eradication?
All right, thank you very much. Yes, as Rotary International and also as districts in Nigeria, one of the things that we do is advocacy, and also, like Dr. Salma mentioned, what are the causes that even causes the transmission. We are focused mostly on communities that we can provide water services to that can help prevent all this circulation of this virus. We have also gone to communities where even the health centers are dilapidated. We have made repairs to it so that mothers and fathers can bring their children to such facilities to be immunized. because most of all these facilities also present an avenue for people to come and get immunized. So we have, as Rotary International, also gone to some of these places to renovate such facilities. We're also working on these open defecations things that are ravaging so many local governments by providing sanitary services to schools, to communities, that will help prevent more circulations of diseases in this direction. So as an area of focus of disease prevention and control, we as Rotary are doing more interventions in this area to help support whatever the government is doing as regards vaccination.
I don't know how your district is, organized, but I believe your district is here in Abuja.
Yes, and 23 states of the northern part of the country.
Okay, so I just want to, because FCT is also one of the states where what are you reading in terms of response and, the attitude of the people towards, immunization? Anything different from what we used to, previous experience before we were certified polio-free?
Well, as the experts have also said, we have discovered that a lot of people are saying, why should we continue the immunization efforts since we have been declared free from polio? And our Rotarians all around the district, like I said, we cover 23 states, all the northern states and southwest states. And we have Rotarians in all these states. So we have always asked them that they should always go and support whatever effort the primary health cares in their areas are, to assist all the healthcare givers, to follow them and ensure that vaccinations are still accepted by the community. So we keep on persuading them, we keep on accompanying them, so that, when they see more respected people, that convinces them that this exercise has to continue. I know during the COVID period, there was a lull in all these vaccinations. So efforts are being made to continually sustain our awareness campaign. We have been doing a lot of signages all around that you need to continue this polio immunization and even any other immunizations that will help the children from being infected with any diseases.
Beyond the sanitation aspect of it, is there any way, because you just mentioned COVID-19, is there any way in which that, as well as the current, security situation in parts of the country, could also have, been an indirect trigger, to the outbreak of the virus?
Well, you all know that because of insecurity, there's some areas that you might not be able to reach. But with the support of the government, and that's why they have said that the government at local government at state levels needs to be involved in this exercise, so that every area that needs to be reached, the security that is needed to reach that place is provided. And we as Rotarians, we are fearful, and we are not fearful. We go to any locations that we need to ensure that a child is not crippled because of non-vaccination. So we always accompany the healthcare givers. We also work with the healthcare centers. We work with all the states and local governments in this direction.
Okay, thank you. Let's bring in again Dr. Bassi. Other guests have raised a very important points here with respect to how to ensure that we sustain our polio-free status in this country. The Rotary International, Dr. Funshaw, Chairman of the National Polio Plus Committee, talked about funding, which is a major factor when you're fighting a war of this nature that has to do with the health. Now, how do you mobilize? How is it possible to mobilize funds to ensure that this new variant does not escalate to the point where it becomes dangerous? Dr. Funshaw made us know that yes, it's not a white polio, but it also has the capability to, wreak havoc. For instance, paralyzing a child, for instance. Now, do we have any format or any strategy to see how funds can be raised to ensure that the fight is sustained for us to maintain our polio status?
Thank you for the question. Just like I mentioned earlier, that our eradication status or interruption status is intact, and we are grateful to the leadership of the President, the Home Minister of Health, and the Executive Director of the agency, Dr. Faisal. The key strategies to eradicate and sustain remains routine immunization, supplemental immunization activities, mop-ups, and then surveillance. Now, when you look at the first key strategy, the routine immunization, in 2016-2017 mixed leaks survey, Nigeria had 33% coverage for routine immunization. And that was when the public healthcare emergency was declared on immunization in 2017, specifically on the 4th of July 2017. And the National Emergency Routine Immunization Coordination Center was set up. Now, with the center set up and the efforts that was put in by the government from the presidency to the Federal Ministry of Health, the NPHCD, and all our partners, supporting that center, routine immunization improved from 33% in that report that was released early 2017 to 71% from the SMART survey of 2019. And as we are also talking now, currently the mixed NIC survey is ongoing to also now see here in 2021 where we are. That improvement from 33% to 71% in the SMART survey on its own, the WHO and the global community are still understanding the strategies that Nigeria used to make that happen. Because globally, it's difficult to have more than 5% increase in a year, but the country surpassed 10% increase in a year from what the work that was done and the support that we had. And if also not for the COVID that came in, and of course in 2020, when we had the pandemic, the lockdown and the rest, there was a global guideline that there should be no conduct of outreaches and so many things on immunization. Nigeria became the first country in the world to stand against that, go out and continue vaccinating the children. I can reassure you and reassure Nigerians that WHO is satisfied with the effort and support that the national government is giving to what the country is doing to sustain routine immunization. And early this November, the regional and their headquarters team are coming to visit Nigeria to understudy what specifically Nigeria is doing, that the progress that we've made is even still being maintained at where we are and not drastically gone down like what is seen in most other African countries. And of course, the main aim of that their visit in early November is sit with us, understudy what we are doing, be able to put up a guideline and use this guideline to support other countries. With that effort alone, the support we've had from the presidency, the federal.
We do apologize. We hope to reconnect with Dr. Wilson via Zoom as soon as we get that sorted out. But let's continue with our guests right here in the studio. Dr. John, I am directing my question to you. Okay, I'm told Dr. Wilson is back. So please continue from where you stopped.
Okay, so we're saying that with the support we've had and where we are on routine immunization, it's really putting us on the right way to sustain our status. And also to reassure Nigerians that the National Emergency Routine Immunization Center is still functional and ongoing. As we are talking, the team of government and partners in that committee team are in the states understanding what they need to do differently to support the work that is going on to sustain the achievement in the routine immunization. And then on the outbreak response, we are using the monovalent oral polio vaccine 2 for the outbreak response. And there's an NMOPV2 vaccine that are also coming, the novel vaccine that are coming, which is a recent development. And the country is importing this to support the efforts in the country. And we have also increased the IPV vaccination from 1 dose to 2 doses. So eligible children in Nigeria are being given the first dose at 14 weeks, and then a second dose is being repeated. So this effort and the support we've had from our leadership is really going to help us a lot. And we want to appeal to Nigerians, please take your children for vaccination. It is free. And we have our helplines that if you go to any facility and somebody charges you for routine immunization, report. We've had many people arrested and locked for charging for vaccination. It is free, and these vaccines are safe and effective. Let's do the needful, keep our environment clean, give our children those basic support that they need to live a healthy life, and it will help us as a team to sustain the achievement we have made as a country. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bassi Okpose. Thank you. And we're glad that you are, as we say, on top of this latest virus and that we're dealing with it. Dr. John, I was going to direct my question to you. We've had a number of emerging, diseases, of course. Recently, Dr. Wilson was also here on this program. We talked about cholera and, the rate at which it's, spreading in parts of the country. There's also Lassa fever also lurking by the corner. We're now into the dry season. Of course, we know dry season meningitis, measles. These are, age-long diseases that have refused to die out. Are there lessons that we can draw from our handling of the white polio virus? Strategies that worked, strategies that endorse the free status that we can also apply in our handling, of these other diseases, especially cholera.
Thank you very much. As you're aware, cholera has to do with hygiene, like we've been saying. Like Dr. Salma talked about the multi-sectoral approach to tackling these diseases. Cholera, as you may be aware, is as a result of consuming contaminated food or water, and it's fecal-oral. So it has to do with environment also. What we have, like in polio, for instance, one key thing that was also introduced in the fight against polio was the environmental surveillance, where samples from the environment are collected and sent to the lab to find out whether people are, or these children are still excreting these viruses in the environment. And if that is so, what can we do to prevent that? So the same thing with cholera. The acute shortage or lack of potable water is one key thing that should be addressed. So you're looking at discussing or collaborating with the Ministry of Water Resources. You're looking at waste management, like the open defecation that the Rotary governor talked about. FCT, if you walk on the street, you see where people are squatting by the roadsides and doing their thing. That should also be tackled and taken seriously. But the question is, if you're telling them not to do it there, what have you provided them with where they can use? So the Ministry of the Environment should look at the possibility of siting public toilets in strategic places where people can use the water resources. And if you look at the cases of cholera, for instance, you find out the majority of these cases are occurring in places where the reticulation of the normal water system does not get there. People have the streams as their source of drinking water, the same stream where the herders go to let their herds drink from, where people also, because of open defecation during the rainy season, the rains wash these feces into the stream, and that is still their source of drinking water. Also, so the issue of environment, health education can never be overemphasized to look at these cases. These diseases have been with us. Why they're called emerging is because the cases now are increasing more than what they had always been. So the collaboration between all these agencies apart from the health sector, it cannot be left alone for the health sector. The health sector cannot do it alone. That is why the issue, also the Lassa fever thing, the One Health approach to health, that's everyone must be involved. The human health, the animal health, the environment must come together. And also thank God for partners like the Rotary and the WHO, UNICEF that are on ground to help us. So all hands must be on deck if we must fight these emerging diseases.
All right, still on the fight against the emerging diseases, let's bring in Dr. Salma Ibrahim to also air her own views and professional understanding of what can be done to see that these emerging or re-emerging diseases can be dealt with. Of course, cholera has been with us for ages. At some point, it will die down, and then at another, it comes. Because what we're experiencing presently is the fact that cholera has re-emerged. And for almost 2 years now, we have been reading news concerning cholera outbreak in different parts of the country. So, Dr. Ibrahim, what are those concerted efforts? You mentioned that earlier on in your opening remarks, that we should expand, the fight, not just within the health sector, but outside the health sector. And that's when we talked about the sectoral, multi-sectoral approach to this. What can be done in this direction with respect to the emerging diseases? How can we bring efforts together involving other professional bodies and other sectors in this regard?
Yes, thank you very much, Karian. I think we have emphasized, we cannot overemphasize the importance of multi-sectoral approach in terms of collaboration. It's everybody's business and every individual's business to put hand on deck to ensure that we control to the barest minimum of public health threats, diseases, the old diseases we've had in the past that are re-emerging, and also the new diseases that have emerged, and we've mentioned some of them, like COVID, Ebola is still there, and then there are several Marburg disease and several other diseases. But what I want to emphasize that is most important, we have to deal with issues of, because if you look at the trend, from past up to date, we have been dealing with issues of myths, the issues of rumors, and then misconceptions. And this has become even more magnified, with the emergence of the technology. People have access to information, but what we need to be aware, are all information correct and appropriate information? Who is putting out those information to you? Now with the press of a button, within the comfort of your home, you will just have access to so much information on the social media, on the internet. But most of this information are not correct. And then you have a lot of misconception about so many things that this really will not allow us to move forward in terms of having an effective measure to prevent. So we need to really look at it. The knowledge of the populace, we have to work towards empowering people with knowledge. Knowledge, the right information, the correct information by health workers, and then by every other person. The media plays a very significant role, and I'm happy NTA is already doing that. And then the attitude of people is something that also takes a very long time and requires sustained engagement to change attitude of people from what they are used to doing. You can imagine what we went through right from HIV/AIDS in Nigeria. There were lots of misconceptions. Then Ebola came, we had similar reactions. We are also went through the same with polio. And then now we are also having the same magnitude of misconceptions, myths around the COVID, especially now the COVID vaccines. So we have to begin to deal with the three key areas. That is the knowledge aspect of it, and also the attitude of people. How do we ensure people adopt a positive behavior and change their attitudes? And then the practices of people. People are used to what they are doing. And then when you tell them now they have to change, you have to use clean potable water. If the water is not available, you have to ensure that you boil your water before you drink that water. They need to be empowered with those knowledge before they could adopt positive practices. So I think this is a big challenge, and this is not only limited within only health workers. It has to go beyond. It's everybody that we have to intensify. And I'm glad to mention that a lot of systems have been in place, mechanisms have been in place within the sector, health sector, from the Ministry of Health and all its parastatals, including NPHCDA, talking about how do we ensure and minimize risk by effectively communicating on all aspects. But more need to be done, not only within the sector, and I still go back to the multi-sectoral approach. We need to bring to speed all sectors on board in terms of knowledge, in terms of working together to ensure that we inculcate positive attitudes and behavior and so that we can achieve behavior change of the populace to adopt better behaviors. Because as NCDC used to say, it is your responsibility to take care of yourself. So people should know that, and you have to get the real facts about how to prevent and adopt healthy lifestyles in whatever you do. So I think this is very important for Nigerians to know, so that we can move forward and then we are not caught up. Because at the moment, I strongly feel as a public health physician, we are caught up. The old diseases are still there. Cholera, we still have cholera increasing, and then we are caught up with new emerging diseases, which we are still struggling to deal with. And then it is so compounded with rumors and misconception, which is also making it very difficult. For instance, you take the issue of the COVID-19 vaccines. There are lots of misconceptions, and we try to also educate people about that. You need to get the vaccines. The vaccines are safe. You need to protect yourself. You need to also, if you get infected with the COVID, it makes it mild, just like getting the measles vaccine for our children. When they are infected with the virus, it becomes very mild.
All right, Dr. Anes, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We just want to take our break. We must go on a commercial. We've indeed exceeded the time for our commercial break, but we'll be right back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Don't go away. It's an interesting conversation we're having.
Ministry of Works and Housing has the responsibility to help improve the quality and the quantity of the road infrastructure assets, which are the roads and the bridges and the highways. At the moment, we have over 13,000 kilometers of road network under repair, reconstruction, or rehabilitation out of the existing 35,000 kilometers of federal road network. These 13,000 kilometers are comprising about 850 different contracts which the ministry superintends across Nigeria. We are fulfilling the mandate of our ministry to expand the connectivity of Nigeria's states and by extension the towns and villages through road transport.
Dear compatriots, our country can be as great as we want.
Let us all commit ourselves to its greatness.
We must be willing to set aside our differences, unite and stay as one.
In our expansive landmass, human and material resources, and plurality lies our strength.
Let our challenges lead us to rediscover our common ground, and together, let's find solutions.
This will take some time, so it requires patience, tolerance, and forgiveness from every one of us.
Let all hands come on deck to protect and transform our country.
Let us unite and see each other not as adversaries, but as brothers and sisters.
Together, we can build a better Nigeria for ourselves and for the next generations.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA, with support from Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
All right, we're glad to have you back on Good Morning Nigeria. We're still with all our guests, taking a look at, of course, sustaining our status on polio, and of course, dealing with the emerging diseases. But now, let's get to some of the activities of Rotary International. Dr. Tunji Funsho We understand that we're going to have World Polio Day just on Sunday. I would like you to lead us into activities that we're marking this very important day in the life of Rotary International. And of course, we know that Nigeria may be free from poliomyelitis, but there are other countries in the world who are still passing through that. So let us understand what the World Polio Day is all about and the theme of the day.
Thank you very much. The World Polio Day is an annual event. It's 24th of October every year, and it's celebrated around the world by Rotarians and our GPI partners as well. It commemorates the birth, of Jonas Salk, who was the scientist who produced the first polio vaccine in 1955. And we use it to do what Rotary knows how to do best. One is advocacy. The second is creating awareness, which is why we're here today. The third and very, very important one, and I've mentioned that earlier, is money. So we are approaching state governments, community leaders, traditional leaders, engaging them to remind them that the job is not done. Because polio is still in the world, and it's only a plane ride away. What most people don't realize that adults can transmit the virus. They may not get infected with it, but they can bring it and excrete it in the environment, and vulnerable children can catch it. So as long as there's polio in any part of the world, no child anywhere is safe. And this is why even countries that have not seen polio for more than 3 decades still give the polio vaccine. So there's no part of the world that the polio vaccine has been stopped because they have been certified polio-free. So that is one important message we've been putting across in our advocacy efforts, so that the leadership at the political level, at traditional level, at religious level, and so the socially active organizations ensure that we continue this job until it is done. The third one is raising money. And I'm sure my governor will talk a little bit more about that. You see, when we started the effort to eradicate polio in 1985, the budget with WHO to eradicate polio by the year 2000 was $120 million US. We all know we didn't eradicate polio in 2000. Rotary alone has expended $2.1 billion US to date.
Globally?
Globally. In Nigeria, we've expended about $300 million. But we're talking global because Rotary's objective is world eradication of polio. I think, we've won a battle with certification in Nigeria. The war is not won until Pakistan and Afghanistan, are certified polio-free. We're not done.
Let me just interject. You keep talking about funding. And I know that part of the success story of the total polio eradication was facilitated by, funding from partners, international partners, donor agencies. They did stop with the free status? The donors stopped funding us?
They did not stop funding us. When you say donors stop funding, Rotary is a funder. We fund a large, amount of the budget of WHO and UNICEF in Nigeria, for instance. Funding has not stopped, but you see, organizations, unlike Rotary, we are just polio focused. Most other organizations have a plethora, of diseases or health concerns that, they are looking into. So with the certification of, Africa as polio-free, they have less emphasis on supporting polio, and they move on to something else. So funding is less. Some of the organizations have actually relieved some of their staff, because they're cutting their funding. That is where, Rotary is different. We have not, because we are committed to this. And part of what we're doing during this World Polio Day is raising funds. For instance, on Saturday, we're going to launch the book that we have written, actually written, by a professor of history from Ibadan, of chronicling the efforts of Rotary in the eradication of polio in Nigeria. I wish I'd brought a copy so that we can tout it. And we want to use the launching of that book to raise further funds to plow into the eradication of polio. Because like I said, and I think, Dr. Bassi, mentioned, part of that, and Dr. Salma, is that this job is not, only about, polio. It affects other childhood diseases as well. Because a lot of the staff that have been trained, who are working in the field of polio now, are also working in areas of other health interventions, like, assisting, with basic things like registering births, like ensuring that families, take their children to the immunization centers to have them immunized.
Dr. Funsho, I'm sorry, I'll have to put you on hold and allow the district governor to also speak on this. What are we likely to find in this book that we have not heard or we don't know about polio?
Well, there are so many things about testimonies about people that survived, the polio efforts, those that joined hands in the advocacy, how the traditional rulers came in to ensure that the myths around the polio vaccinations, was doused among the communities, and their supports, and even their open immunization of their children. So all these efforts that people are not aware of, the field workers that have died in the course of these immunization efforts, all these things are chronicled in the book so that people can understand that the efforts in eliminating polio or eradicating polio in Nigeria was not just done by a set of people that, people's involvement, were varied in that direction. So that's the essence of the book launch. And as Dr. Tunji have said, the funds that are raised is towards the Polio Plus funds, that will be used in
How much are you targeting?
Well, the book is just a small price. Each book is going to go for a minimum of 10,000 naira, and we will ensure that after the book launch, we also promote it all around the community so that we can raise substantial amounts. Like Dr. Tu said, $300 million expended by Rotary into Nigeria is no small money. If we can keep on raising funds, we have a target at least to raise not less than $20 million within this Rotary year towards the Rotary funding, to help, in the further eradication of polio in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and the immunization efforts to keep on continuing. And also tomorrow we'll be doing an awareness walk, from Old Parade Ground at 7 a.m., where, we will sensitize people as well that polio immunization is still important for the children.
Well, we're wishing you all the best. Rotary is a funder, and they can also facilitate funding, from other sectors of our national life. We thank you for that. I hope there's nothing much more to know about this. You are doing a book launch, you're raising funds, all geared towards polio eradication or sustaining polio-free status and ensuring that the emerging diseases do not find their way into the lives of our younger generation. All right. Gentlemen and ladies, we actually winding down on this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria. So let's get your final thoughts on the subject matter. Let's return to Dr. Bassi Obosin. Dr. Bassi Obosin, of course, we have discussed a wide range of issues concerning sustaining our polio status and, of course, the emerging diseases. What else do you want us to know?
What I would just want to reassure Nigerians is that our interruption and eradication status is still intact. The support we need from the government, our partners, are also outstanding. The routine immunization efforts are ongoing to sustain the gains we have so far. The vaccines being used for these vaccinations are also very safe and effective. And we really need from the part of Nigerians to ensure that the eligible children are taken to our facilities for vaccination. These vaccines are available. And I know in the previous programs, I've always mentioned also in Africa, for routine immunization, traditional vaccines, Nigeria is the only country in Africa that the government buys it 100%. Partners support us with new vaccines that are being introduced. But for routine immunization, traditional vaccines, government has always given that 100% support for the vaccine to be procured and the enabling environment. So we also want to plead with Nigerians, the vaccines are available. Please take your eligible children for vaccination. On the part of government, with the leadership we have from the president to the minister and our executive director, Dr. Faisal, the efforts to ensure that this achievement on polio eradication is sustained is not doubted. And we promise Nigerians, working with our partners like Rotary that are here and other partners, will keep on delivering to Nigerians on this. Help us take your children for vaccination. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bassi Oposen. Dr. Salma Anas, just very, very briefly, what more would you want Rotary to do, especially with management of this new vaccine-derived polio virus?
Thank you very much. I think under the leadership of the Minister of Health, Dr. Osagi Ihanire, we still remain committed, and we also want to ask for continuous commitment of all our partners and the relevant stakeholders in the fight against polio, even now the vaccine-derived polio. We continue to advocate and create awareness, but most importantly, what we are asking for is 100% coverage so that every Nigerian child have access to the vaccine, and 100% effective surveillance system in place to ensure that we detect a new emergence of virus that could be imported, may God forbid that, from other countries, travelers or neighboring countries, or from wherever, to immediately detect that. And also, two, to ensure that we detect any case of acute flaccid, AFP, flaccid paralysis in the country, and to rule out that it is associated with polio or not associated with polio. And if associated with polio, action be taken to bring that to an end.
Thank you so much. Thank you indeed for your contribution.
Is to ensure that all
Thank you, Dr. Sama Ibrahim. Thank you so much for your very insightful contribution this morning on the program. Now, let's return to Abuja here and get Dr. Doris John to also let us know. As an epidemiologist, well, of course, we'll have something on our hands this morning that has to do with sustaining our status on polio and, of course, ensuring that emerging diseases are taken under control. What else can we know?
Yeah, thank you very much. For the theme for polio, World Polio Day this year is delivering on the promise. And what is that promise? To ensure a polio-free world. And that cannot be achieved unless we ensure equitable vaccination for every child. Let's ensure that every child has these 2 drops of the oral polio vaccine, and during routine immunization have the injectable inactivated polio vaccine. That is only when we can say, yes, we have delivered on the promise. So caregivers should bring their children that are eligible for vaccination, and during the supplemental immunization activities, when these teams show up at your doorsteps, please oblige them and present your children for immunization. With that sustained zeal, we should and we can achieve a polio-free world. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Funsho, your last word. What's in view of the lukewarm attitude now towards immunization, what's your last word coming from Rotary to Nigerians?
I think it's to remember, as I said earlier, that we've won, the battle, of ensuring that we get certified polio-free. Our slogan in Rotary in Nigeria now is keep polio at 0. And everything that needs to be done in that direction should be done. Creating the awareness, encouraging mothers and caregivers to make their children's and wards available for immunization, either at the health centers for routine immunization or when we do some of these supplementary immunization activities, going house to house, or like we're doing now for vaccine derived, doing outbreak response using this new, much more stable vaccine, is to keep our eyes on the ball such that we keep promise to the children of the world, a world without polio.
All right, gentlemen and ladies, we thank you so much for being part of our show this morning. We'd like to, first of all, appreciate Dr. Tunji Funsho, Chairman, Nigeria National Polio Plus Committee. We're glad you were here this morning. And Ayo Oyedoku, Rotary International District 9125 Governor. We appreciate your contribution this morning. And Dr. Doris John, FCT State Epidemiologist, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you.
And via Zoom, we had Dr. Sama Ibrahim Anas, Director and Head Family Health Department, Federal Ministry of Health. We also appreciate your contributions this morning. And not forgetting also via Zoom, Dr. Basi Obosen, Director, Disease Control and Immunization, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. All right, that's it for Good Morning Nigeria today. But before we leave you, let's get some entertainment tidbits.